My guest is .com Tom Pelissero.
Hi, Tom.
Perfectly manicured nails, huh? That's how we're starting this morning?
That's
You
all
look
right.
great on
look
TV.
Great.
You
we were
look
just
great,
watching
Tom.
you. Yeah.
We were talking about personal hygiene because we said, dude, when we first saw you this morning, it was 4 o'clock Vegas time, and you looked tan and alert on a Cosmo balcony.
You know, it's interesting. So I'm staying in the Cosmo, but I'm in a different tower from where the suite is. And so definitely had the feeling as I walked that while there were other people pretty well dressed at this hour, most of them were going in while I was going out. And I think that's going to be the theme of my week when I'm on at 4 a.m. local time every day.
Yeah.
Tom, what do you do to look so vibrant all the time? It's super early in the morning in Vegas, and you're on TV, just bright-eyed, tons of energy, great smile. And meanwhile, it's, 7:30 here, and I'm just trying to get through my energy drink.
I have no choice. I would say that fear and necessity are wonderful motivators, and that certainly helps.
Yeah, but are you a coffee guy? Are you a energy drink guy?
No.
Don't tell me
So
you're just
I
all
drank
natural.
He's a life guy.
I used to drink a decent amount of coffee. I cut it out a couple of years ago because really my naturally bubbly personality requires no enhancements. So I go straight tea with a little bit of honey, no caffeine in anything. Just, keep focused and let it rip.
What a gift.
Tom, it's Meat Sauce. The last time we talked to you, it was because I reported that a fake coach was signing with the Vikings, so I apologize for that. With this week in the NFL draft, would the keyword this week be chaos because no one knows what's going to happen, especially at the top?
When hockey messaged me, I thought maybe that's what had happened. I needed to debunk another one of your terrible reports. Yeah, I mean, it is. It is a highly unpredictable draft, and that's driven in part by the fact that you don't have that clear-cut top quarterback from which everything else flows. I mean, in recent years, in a lot of drafts last year, it was quarterbacks with the first 3 picks. This year, you can't rule out the possibility that a Malik Willis or maybe even a Kenny Pickett ends up going in the top 10. But without those top quarterbacks, you have fewer teams trying to trade up. You have less clarity in terms of what's going to happen at the top of the draft. Obviously, the Jaguars are the first team to have the number 1 pick 2 years in a row. They have their quarterbacks. They wouldn't be considering one there anyway. But you've heard GM Trent Baalke say there's 4 players in consideration at this point. Usually when somebody says there's 4 players in consideration, that's the bat signal of, hey, somebody call me because I'd love to move back a few spots and get one of these guys. I just don't sense that there's that opportunity to do it. And so, if we're looking at the top 10, it's going to be a bunch of those pass rushers that are going to go. It's quite possibly going to be 2, 3, 4 offensive tackles. A couple of the corners could go really high. Those aren't really the sexy type of positions, though, and you have a draft where there's really 2 quarterbacks who are pretty good bets to go in round 1. Maybe 1 running back goes. There could be a whole bunch of wide receivers, but not that top guy. It's just a different year, and that's going to lead to a fun Thursday night.
Tom, Power Trip goes out to Vegas a week from Wednesday, so we're there a little, 9 days from now. And when we're there, it's about 5% work, 95% gambling and drinking and napping or doing what else we want. You're there all week, I assume. Give me, how different of a week is it for you in Las Vegas? And I assume you're making texts and making calls, and you're a pro's pro. Is this pretty much what you would be doing even if you weren't in Las Vegas?
The only difference is I was in bed last night at, I want to say, 8:15 p.m., accounting for the time change. So, yeah, other than that, it's more or less the usual. Now, the thing is, a lot of the players and the agents get in starting today, so there's more people actually in town. So running around actually seeing more people in person. But other than that, yeah, doing the same thing I was doing over the weekend and last week, talking to GMs and head coaches and everybody as, I don't want to say clueless, but certainly everyone is uncertain about what's going to play out, as I am at this point. That's just kind of the way this draft is shaping up.
The Vikings have a brand new regime picking this year's draft, and in years past, it was always we were thinking that Spielman would trade down. Is there anything that you've heard or maybe about what the Vikings could possibly do at pick 12 this year?
They've considered a lot of different scenarios. I know that there have been calls with other teams just kind of feeling out, what potentially could happen around them, trade possibilities, nothing out of the ordinary. I think that there's a pretty clear need at the cornerback position. But one dynamic that's shaping up here is I don't know how many of those top corners are still going to be around by the time we get to pick number 12. Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati, I would fully anticipate is off the board. Derek Stingley from LSU, I've heard more and more in recent days that he could end up being a very high pick too. The next guy is Trent McDuffie from Washington, one of the great guys you'll ever meet, and a really good player. He's going to go somewhere in that probably 11 to 15 type of a territory. But with those corners going earlier, that opens up the possibilities of, could you see them going, the edge rusher route if any of those guys end up sliding? Because those guys, probably 4 of them are going to come off the board in the top 10. Does anybody, a Jermaine Johnson or Kayvon Thibodeau, get into the area where you could make a trade for them? Even the wide receivers, obviously Adam Thielen restructured his contract to keep himself there, and Justin Jefferson's one of the best young players in the NFL. But if the right receiver is sitting there, I don't think that you can necessarily rule that out either. There's a lot of different spots that they could address in this draft, and there's not a whole lot that I would necessarily rule out at number 12.
So what about, because I was going to ask you about the wide receiver thing, because it does seem like there's more and more, I don't want to say steam because I don't have like inside information, but it seems like the possibilities as you laid out, the wide receiver really could be a pick for the Vikings if they can't trade down. But the other possibility is Kyle Hamilton. What do you know and what do you like about Kyle Hamilton, especially for the Vikings at 12?
Kyle Hamilton's a unique case because there's people in the league who will tell you he is the best player in the entire draft, just in terms of pure football players. The issue is he did not test particularly well. That raised certain red flags. When people went back to the tape, they still saw him with a really high play speed, and that's why I would anticipate that that's going to, win out here. But does he go in the top 10? It's going to be close. I mean, that may be a player that is in that, potential neighborhood. They got to, you got to weigh all this stuff out. But I wouldn't rule that out either. I mean, somebody's going to get a really, really good football player with Kyle Hamilton. And, at certain points, especially in the first round, you have to be looking at get the best players possible and then figure out everything else. Even, if one of those offensive tackles ends up sliding, I'd say that's one of the positions the Vikings don't really have a need because, Christian Darrisaw played really well once he got healthy and got going last season. They just extended Brian O'Neill. But if the best value is an offensive lineman, well, you certainly can use upgrades on the interior. You can move some people around. You've got options. I think that's one thing that you're going to see with this new regime for the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is it really is going to be about, asset allocation, getting the most really good players as possible, fitting them in, and examining all options, even when you're talking about, what you can do with your current roster in terms of trades and, re-signings, free agency, and all those things year in and year out.
We're talking to Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network live in Las Vegas. Tom, everything you've heard, who's the number one quarterback?
Malik Willis from Liberty is the one who has people, I would say, the most intrigued, and he was number one when I wrote my annual quarterback breakdown last week. I don't watch any tape on these guys, to be quite honest. I just ask people in the league what they think. And the thing with Willis is everyone just talks about the traits and the upside. He's got a cannon arm. He's a really good runner. He's got this kind of innate playmaking ability where you see some throws and plays he makes on tape. They're just absolutely unreal. Part of the tough part of evaluating the quarterbacks for coaches and scouts is that Malik Willis and Matt Corral and Sam Howell all run this kind of very simplified, kind of like the Baylor offense where it's a lot of just get the ball out and quick reads, one read and go, those types of things. That challenges things. But all the coaches I talked to who met with Malik Willis really like the personality. They like the guy. They think that he can learn, he can explain the offense that he was in. There's always a growth process with all these quarterbacks coming in. I just got the sense that people are buying into him. If you need a guy to start right now, that's Kenny Pickett from Pitt. The issue that everybody has with him is just what's the upside? His arm is good. It's not great. He's a good athlete. He's not a rare athlete. He does play in a pro-style offense, and so every throw that you need to see him make in the NFL, you've seen him make on tape. But then, the question everybody comes back to is just how much better is he going to get? It's a little bit like Mac Jones last year. It was like, okay, Mac's really accurate. He's a fast processor. He's running pro style concepts. He's under center, but like, what's his ceiling? That's sort of the same conversation you have with Pickett, although he's probably not as fast of a processor as Mac Jones, and he definitely moves a lot better than Mac Jones. And then you got, 3 other quarterbacks too. And I just talked about this on Good Morning Football a short time ago. Don't be surprised, for as much as everybody has kicked around this quarterback class, and we might not have one in the top 10, do not be surprised if there is a run on those guys at the end of round one, because between Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell and Matt Corral, they all have holes in them, but they all have fans. And, we saw it years ago with the Vikings and Teddy Bridgewater. There's a financial advantage to getting the fifth-year option on your quarterback, which you get only in round one. And so there's a bunch of teams at the top of the second round right now who all could use a quarterback. I would not be shocked at all. And I've talked to GMs who believe this is going to happen and are willing to potentially move out too. If you have some teams that just go, we got to get ahead of Detroit at 32 because they might take the quarterback. We can get the fifth-year option. We'll give up something here, move up somewhere in the 20s and take one or two of these guys.
It's 55 degrees in Las Vegas, and it's a high of 83.
Perfect.
Tom's there on the perfect freaking week.
Yeah.
Tom, you're so lucky. Tom, thanks for your time, man.
You're the best.
We'll check in at some
Thanks a
point
lot,
down
Tom.
the road.
Enjoy
and,
the pool.
Yeah, reach out to us when you get back to the cities, and we'll get you in one of these days, too.
You got it, guys. Sounds
Thank
good.
you, buddy. See you later.
See ya.
.com, Tom
There he goes.
Pelissero
How great is
of
he?
the NFL
He's the
Network.
best.
He's the best.
He's the best, man.
By the way, that's that thing at the end there you can make some money off of, because the line in Vegas, the over-under for quarterbacks drafted in round one is 2.5.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was 3.5 like a month ago.
2.5 according to Pro Football Talk. They have
Man.
it at 2.5.
I
I'll
might
take
make
the
a
over.
sports bet.
I'll take the over.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It sounds like everybody would take the over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have taken the over before he said that for that same reason, but he sounds a lot more confident than
A lot more.
I would have been guessing. It sounds like he's actually, I don't know, talked to somebody about
Yeah,
it.
maybe he has. Thank you, .com Tom. And thank you, Radko, for bringing us Vikings news. That's what we just did, was football/Vikings news. So thank you for that. Now let's talk to Marnie Gillarner.
Who?
Because she loves the T-Wolves.
Oh.